Hello, hello, and welcome to a quick demo on how to make 4 flying geese from 1 big block and 4 little blocks. So we're gonna put them together, cut them up, and magically have 4 flying geese. I am doing this with the measurements for the Starling pattern, which has a lot of flying geese. So this is a 10-inch square that I snagged from a layer cake, which is a bundle of 10-inch squares. This is a 5 1/4-inch square. If you want to change the shape, the dimensions of your geese, you can find flying geese charts at susiequilts.com. A lot of times people, if they want to make identical flying geese, these squares will all be the same, but I just cut up some scraps because scrappy quilts are kind of nice. Okay, so here I'm just laying them right sides together. So you can see this is the right side down on top of the right side of this fabric. And they overlap right here at the corner. Now I'm gonna do something really naughty just because it's a demo. I'm gonna use a Sharpie pen. I actually love these Sharpie pens, but definitely not if I'm going to be sewing. No. I like them for writing in my calendar so that I can scratch things off like, I did that, yeah. And it makes a really big mark. Okay, I'm gonna do a vertical line, a guide line. I mean, the main reason you don't wanna use something like a Sharpie on your fabric is because it doesn't wash out. But it's really nice for you to see. So you can see that really, really clearly. Okay, I'm gonna stick a couple pins in this. I forgot pins. I forgot pins at this table for this demo. I'm gonna stick some pins in it. And then at my sewing machine, I am going to sew 1/4 inch from this guide mark, okay? I'm not gonna sew on the guide mark. I've totally done that before. You're gonna cut on the guide mark, okay? So we're gonna sew around the guide mark, and with quilting, we typically use a 1/4 inch seam. So I'm going to, there we go, and cut to this being sewn. Now, if you have a bunch of flying geese that you need to make, I highly recommend chain piecing. So to chain piece, you would just send one side through your sewing machine. Don't snip right here and just keep going. Next 10-inch square unit, next unit. And then once you've sewn all the units on one side, you can snip, 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 or you could try it without snipping. Flip it and then just send it on through. So you can see I have 2 seams right now. Each unit now has 2 seams. And if it's a little bit ripply here, that's totally fine. No big deal. I'm gonna slice it right down the middle and all of that rippliness will just disappear magically. Okay, so now I am gonna take this to my ironing board and I am going to press these to the side. Some people like to press them open. If you want to press something open, you can. I still suggest using your fingers first and finding that opening with your fingers, doing a little finger press and then ironing over as much as you can. Before you have a hot steamy iron, work the fabric with your fingers because that way you won't distort it as much. If once you get, steam and heat in the mix, you can really kind of warp that fabric. And as much as possible, we don't want to warp our fabric because we want it to be, unwarped. All right, I'll come back with both of these units pressed, and then we'll move on with our next squares. Okay, now we have these cute little heart units, and the next step is to take the rest of our squares, right sides together, so right side facing down, and I'm gonna place it just like so on this corner. Move you up, place you. This is the back side, so you're gonna be facing up because right side's together. And then I'm just gonna do the exact same thing, but on a smaller scale. So if you feel like you don't need a guide mark and you can just eyeball it, sure, why not, I'm just gonna draw these guide marks just for the demonstration. There's also tape You can get really fun 1/4 inch tape that you put on your sewing machine, so you can use that as a guide mark. So that kind of saves you some time having to draw these guide marks with your ruler. It is just totally your call. I mean, if you're like, hey, let's just chill, let's not speed up the process, let's just roll with it, then why not? Why not draw your guide marks? Oh, hey, look what I got, pins. Okay, so here I am pinning. I forgot pins last time. I do really like pins. I just sew so much better with pins. And plus I can kind of sew a little bit faster because I know things are gonna stay in place. All right, so if you're pinning, that's about how many you need, 1 on each side. That's what I like. Okay, off we go. We're gonna sew our 1/4 inch seam along the guide mark. So we're not gonna sew on the guide mark, just next to it. So the edge of your presser foot, if you have a 1/4 inch seam presser foot, like a patchwork foot, is gonna just kind of butt up this line. Right here, can you see I didn't even snip my threads on either side. So I have threads on both sides. So I have 2 threads to snip now because I chain pieced both of them. Here I go. How about I put that right in the center? And I'm gonna do a little slice. Because I have drawn guide marks, I could use scissors. You know, if I had a whole bunch of geese to trim, I could just sit down and grab my scissors and just kind of take my time. It's always gonna go faster when you involve a ruler and a rotary cutter though. Okay, so now it's time to press these. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna grab a little tool. Again, I don't have a tool, but you're gonna think this is cool. If you haven't seen one of these before, this is a roller, kind of fun. You could use a rolling pin. I always like to think of what could I find around my house that I can use as a quilting tool. I don't know if a rolling pin would work. Oh, I know what you could use. You could use a butter knife. I wish I had a butter knife. And here, I'll use a hair marker to show you. Okay, so this is a hair marker. It's a fun tool, but also it's kind of like using the dull side of a butter knife. You can just press. I mean, not too much because again, we don't want to warp, but because I'm not using steam and heat, it's probably not going to warp really anyway. And this is a great way if you're just like, I don't want to turn on my iron. I don't really feel like it. You know, you can just use this. If it's like really hot, you don't have AC in your house, you know, you just kind of give it little rubs. Little loving, gentle, but firm rubs. Okay, so we have enough. So here we go. So now let's trim one of these. Okay, with flying geese, sometimes you need to trim more than other times. So for the Starling pattern, we want our unfinished trimmed. That means these little dog ears are going to come off. So we want this trimmed block to be 9 1/4 by 4 7/8. And again, any size that you want to make, finished or unfinished, you can find in the Flying Geese tutorial, the chart that's listed in this video, or you know, in the pattern. Okay, so first I'm just going to measure this. I have put some tape guide marks. Oh, hello. You can't really see. I put some tape guide marks just because 9 1/4 and 4 7/8 is kind of odd. It's like, especially then 4 7/8. It's like, whoa. Okay, so you don't have to do the tape, but it's kind of helpful if you don't want to have to look too closely. And you know what I'm seeing? I'm seeing that this is really close. So it's almost exactly right, just as it is. So honestly, with this pattern in particular, you could probably get away with just trimming your dog ears and moving on. You honestly could. Okay, and isn't that great news? If you really wanted to make sure that your block was precise, so for example, what you really want from a Flying Geese block is you want this point right here. I'm going to zoom in just a touch. Let's see here. Meep. Whoa. You want this to be 1/4 inch wide. So you want this little triangle point to be 1/4 inch from the edge. Let's take a little look-see. You see what I'm saying? It pretty much is. So I mean, there's really just not much trimming you need to do. You want these points to be right at the corner, and they are, so that's awesome. So let's just pretend this block was pretty off. How about I zoom back out? You ready for it? Here we go. All right. Let's just say this block was pretty off. Things are looking kind of weird. I stretched my fabric because I was like hot and heavy with the steam. All right, I have my guide marks for my tape. I'm gonna find the halfway mark of whatever this width is right here, this length, whatever you say, this long number. So it's 9 1/4. So half of 9 1/4 is actually 4 5/8, which again is like a super weird number. Okay, so 4 5/8, it's like this little notch right here. Should I get close again? Nah, I won't get close again. Okay, and again, that's like right in the center, so I'm doing pretty good. But let's just say I wasn't. I would trim this, and I would go this way. Really, all I'm doing is trimming the dog ears. I get that out of the way. I flip it, or I don't flip, I rotate it 180 degrees. I line it back up, and I have all of my guide marks in place. And then once again, I do cut. And I do that so I can cut away from myself. And then there we go. We have a flying goose. It's gonna fly south for the winter, not Chicago where we are. Anyway, I hope that was helpful. Go ahead and trim up your geese, and then you're ready to start assembling your quilt.